Joined now by Rink-Wide Vancouver's Jeff Paterson, our Canucks reporter, covered the 3-1 victory over Edmonton on Saturday. Good day, Jeff. How are we?
Yeah, good. Counting her down to the playoffs now, 2 to go. So you can sort of feel it in the air, but a little bit of business to do for the Canucks between now and the start of the postseason.
Although
it's the postseason preseason is how we've characterized it. Little test runs.
Let's ask you our poll question today. Are you confident in the Canucks heading into the playoffs?
There are still some issues and concerns, but in a salary cap world, every team's got their warts. Wins like Saturday, I think, have to sort of instill some confidence that they can get games like that done. And I get Connor McDavid wasn't playing the other night. And in a 2-1 game for most of the third period, you kind of figure that he would have been heard from at some point, but he wasn't there. And the Canucks did what they had to do. So, defensively, really, since the All-Star break, they've been lights out good. There have been a few blips along the way. If you could tell me that guys like Pia Suter and Sam Lafferty were going to contribute offense with even some degree of regularity, that would change the conversation for me. So it was nice to see those guys rise up on a night when the Stars really didn't have it and didn't look all that engaged, quite frankly. Not that they hurt the Vancouver Canucks, although JT took that early penalty that put the back of their heels right out of the gate. But nice to see that, this team can get it done with some of the lesser lights stepping up and remembering where that net is and how to find it.
Great first period.
Where are you on their specialty teams at this stage, Jeff?
They got through the Edmonton game without giving up anything on the penalty kill, so a step in the right direction there. First power play the other night was dreadful. It wasn't a full 2 minutes because there was some overlap, but they couldn't even get in the zone and set up. The second one started to zip it around a little bit more. Got a few shots on goal, but I still am left wanting more from the top end guys when they're working on the power play. So 2 games to kind of iron that out, and then we'll see where the power play is once they start playing for keeps in game 1.
I've been noticing the Storks a lot more. Tyler Myers, Nikita Zadorov have been playing differently. Like, they are more active right now. Do you think that's conscious? Like, what am I watching there? Because and I like it, by the way. I think both of them played pretty well versus the Oilers.
No, I thought you were talking about following Elias Lindholm's wife on Instagram. I see that she's pregnant.
Yes,
the Stork's going to be delivering there. So, so they don't have to worry about this. Isn't going to impact him in the playoffs. This is later in the calendar year. Yeah. You know what? I'm glad you brought those 2 guys up because the Hughes-Hronek pair, and not the fact that they were on the ice for the only Edmonton goal the other night. I just didn't think they had their best stuff.
Hughes tried to do way too much. Tried to hold on to the puck too much and got burned a couple of times.
Obviously. But the 2 guys that you mentioned, their 2 biggest defensemen, I thought stood out for the right reasons, and that's not always the case with those 2 guys. But Zadorov, obviously the history of the Battle of Alberta, seeing it from a slightly different perspective now across the Rockies, but had probably built up some hatred for the Edmonton Oilers over the years in his time in Calgary. And Tyler Myers, when he plays with it himself, can still be effective. Moves beautifully for a big man around the ice. It's been the decision-making, and it's been those loud mistakes that have backfired on him in the hockey club. But I really do think that with Rick Tocchet's system, with Adam Foote and the work that he has put in individually with all these defensemen, they found a way to keep Tyler Myers sort of within himself for the most part. And I think in the second half of the season, he's been pretty good for the Vancouver Canucks. He's limited the mistakes. He still takes penalties. Took one the other night, obviously, when he got the stick into the face of Evander Kane. At this stage of his career, I think you kind of have to live with that. And that goes back to the question about special teams. As much as Tocchet's going to harp discipline in the playoffs, this group is still going to take some penalties. It's a question of, how do the referees call it? How often do they to the penalty box? But Tyler Myers makes the play that leads to the Pia Suter goal. I thought overall, again, no McDavid changes the dynamic of facing the Edmonton Oilers. It just does. But you can only play the team that's out there and the assembled cast that they've got. And so with that in mind, I thought, the depth defenders and really, go Casey DeSmith, the depth defenders, and get some secondary scoring. It was a good night for the lesser lights for the Vancouver Canucks on Saturday.
And thank you to Casey DeSmith for allowing us to skip the narrative of who the backup goaltender should be on a night-to-night basis. And God forbid Thatcher Demko should get injured in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine if DeSmith gets blown out in that game, the fear that would be in Canucks fans' heads if Demko did get it? Now, if Demko has to skip a start, I don't know that the city burns because of it.
Yeah, I think you had to feel good for Casey DeSmith. I know his teammates and the coaching staff all did, and you saw the big hug from Thatcher Demko in his suit after the game down in the locker room area. Look, DeSmith's a popular guy. He was brought in because he knows that role, that he is the backup. And as we saw, when a backup is asked to play 6, 8, 10 games in a row, all of a sudden he's no longer the backup, and there's a reason he hasn't risen to a starter's role in the National Hockey League. He gets his role, he plays it well. He's provided the Canucks certainly adequate backup goaltending all season long. That said, there was some heat on him for the reasons you laid out there, and the fact he had lost his last 4 starts going into that game. And so, if he loses that one, then you're right. The question about the backup, this question about what to do with him beyond this year, and that's something for the summer, obviously. But he was good. He was good early. His first shot was Leon Draisaitl, a one-timer on the power play, and he kind of took that one right in the midsection. I thought his rebound control was exceptional the other night, and that hasn't always been the case, certainly of late, but just didn't leave a lot lying around. And the one goal that gets past him, a deflection that not a whole lot he could do there. And in fact, I wanted to see the replay because it looked maybe like the stick was right at that crossbar level. I didn't have an issue. I mean, it was a good goal and it's counted and all that kind of stuff. But, there were breakdowns before then. Not going to pin the goal on Casey DeSmith. But I just thought, that's a really thorough, professional performance from him for a guy that hadn't played in a week, and maybe the break did him well. I know he put in a lot of time with Ian Clark in practice and morning skates and those types of things, and that's all part of the work of and the job description as a backup goaltender. So good on him. He rose to the challenge, and I think once he got into it, the shots were 7-0 at one point in that first period. It could have been a different hockey game, and for the Oilers, they were playing back-to-back 3 and 4, and you kind of wondered if the Canucks could weather that storm. Might fatigue creep into the Oilers game a little bit later as the night went along. I really liked the way the Canucks played the third period. They limited Edmonton to just 2 high-danger chances. It was, a fairly low event, but that was just fine for the visiting team that was looking for a result. And the Canucks, and they've shown it all season, guys, so much better when they get the lead, and they've found ways to lock it down. And I thought the third period the other night against Edmonton looked a lot like the third period against Vegas earlier in the week, where slow start for the Canucks, but once they got it to 4-3 and they got in front, then they were able to really lock it down. And I do think that that's going to be their secret sauce come playoff time. But the big part there is getting that lead, getting out in front of your opponent, and then being able to put that into practice.
51 times, Jeff, now, is that right?
Yeah, 37 wins in those 51. So, most teams are better when they score first, but the Canucks have scored more first goals. They've opened the scoring more than any team in the National Hockey League. So, yeah, that's been a huge part of their success.
What about DeSmith for next year? Do you think you bring him back next year if he's willing to sign at a reasonable freight?
Yeah, I don't want to punt on the question here, but that really is a decision to be made in the offseason. I think they like what they've got in Artur Silovs. I think they see an opportunity. And we had this discussion at this time last year about, is Silovs ready to be the backup? Well, he's got another year of pro hockey under his belt. And I know that it hasn't been the greatest year for him down in Abbotsford, but he looked all right in the games that he played here in the National Hockey League. And even if the cap goes up, every dollar matters when you got to factor in the Paterson raise and whatever they do with Hronek and Dakota Joshua. So, it might be the cost-effective option for the Vancouver Canucks to make it Artie's time now. So I do think that they're going to have a decision on this one. I wouldn't have an issue if they brought back DeSmith at the right price point. Again, he's a popular guy. I think the teammates like him. The coaching staff certainly trusts him. They know what they've got there. But you can't get too loyal to the backup goaltender if it is a matter of dollars and cents.
The offense still not sputtering, but it's been a long time since we saw 5-spot on the Canucks record. In fact, you have to go all the way back to Winnipeg, I believe, on March the 9th. Which seems unfathomable when we look at the first half of the Vancouver Canucks schedule. Is that conscious? Are they struggling, or are they just playing a different kind of hockey leading up into the playoffs where they know that 3 or 4 goals is all they're going to need?
Yeah, look, the first half of the season was fun, but you're not going to score 10 in the playoffs, I don't think, very often. And 8 on opening night against the Edmonton Oilers, that was great. But yeah, I do think it's a realization that this is who they have to be. This is more of who they are. Now, you want Elias Paterson to still take over a hockey game somewhere along the line here, and he's run out of time in the regular season. And JT Miller it's funny because Miller's on a 10-game point streak, but it doesn't feel like that to me. Got a second assist on the opening goal the other night, so he keeps the streak intact. But, I don't think he's been as dominant as we have seen him for long stretches this season. So 10 games with a point tells you that he's factoring into the offense, but I'm not sure that he's been a leader. And again, I didn't think that either of their top two lines the other night was terribly effective. But yeah, I think this is the understanding that they're going to get in these tight games come playoff time. And I think there's a comfort level and confidence that they can win them. But you're right. It would be nice to see this team. And so much of it tracks back to the power play, power play goal here or there. It's funny you mentioned that March 9th game against Winnipeg. That, of course, was the night that Thatcher Demko was last seen in a Canuck uniform in game action. But it was also really the last time that the Canucks got 2 goals from what I would consider depth guys, true depth guys. Pia Suter, who I know has played higher in the lineup, but with his struggles, I consider him depth scoring.
Sure.
Phil Giuseppe scored that night as well. So, that's part of it. Like, I think there's a couple of ways to come at that question that, the top end guys have been fairly consistent, but you'd like them to be a little more prominent sometimes. Power play, obviously. And then if you can get some contributions from the guys lower in the lineup, I mean, that obviously would be a formula that would work for the Vancouver Canucks here in the regular season, but certainly in the playoffs as well. But it is a little surprising to think how easy they made it look to get to 5 routinely in the first half of the season, and it's been more than a month now since they've put 5 up in a hockey game.
Are we safe with Quinn Hughes winning the scoring race for defensemen?
1 game left for the Avs.
Yeah. I mean, Cale Makar is certainly capable of having a big night, so I think you'd love to see Quinn Hughes have a big night on Tuesday against the Flames and take care of that and just to roll pretty much everything that's still up for grabs into one big ball for the Vancouver Canucks, and an effort from Hughes and a productive night from Hughes would go a long way to getting the points that they need or the point that they need to wrap up the division. So it kind of all goes hand in hand there. But Cale Makar isn't done just yet. Had a couple of, his 21st goal of the season. He also had an assist in the Colorado loss in Vegas on Sunday. So, look, the leading scorer among the defenders shouldn't be the determining factor for the Norris. But it would be a massive feather in the cap for Quinn Hughes to lead all defensemen. And it does feel like on some judges' scorecards still, some voters, just the hints that you're seeing out there in social spaces that Quinn Hughes needs to finish ahead of Makar. I don't know that Makar necessarily in their minds needs to finish ahead of Quinn Hughes, but I do think for some people and some voters, they need to see Quinn Hughes win that defenseman scoring derby. So it's not done yet. He's in good position because he's got 2 games. But I was still thinking, if that game in Winnipeg meant absolutely nothing, like would Quinn Hughes not benefit from putting his feet up on his couch at home and not even making the trip to Winnipeg? Something tells me that it's not going to be that simple, and we don't know what that game is going to mean to the Winnipeg Jets ultimately. So still a lot of moving parts here, but he's close, like the team, but still needs, I think, one more really solid effort to kind of salt it all away.
100% on the last point. You rest if you get a nice 4-1 win on Tuesday, Quinn Hughes gets 2 points, kind of ensures that Makar can't catch him. Yes, you rest Quinn Hughes. Absolutely, you do.
And we also know, barring something unforeseen, the Canucks are going to finish with a better record than the Avalanche as well, who have been awful here. My goodness, coming down the stretch. Yeah. Colorado, the losses you've endured, including Sunday to Vegas, blowing a 3-goal period.
Just so bad.
3-goal third period lead. Marvelous stuff, Jeff. I'm done. Are you? Maybe just set up the week ahead, Jeff, with Calgary, Winnipeg, and what's at stake postseason playoff, postseason seeding wise here.
Yeah, red hot Andrei Kuzmenko coming back to town. I know that it's kind of garbage time for the Flames, but old Kuzi there lighting it up. Had a hat trick the other night. Figured in a couple of the goals in the win against Arizona. It is awards night. Obviously, that holds a little bit of intrigue. I don't think there's much doubt about top defender. I think we can probably put that one to bed. But MVP.
Unsung hero, Jeff. Unsung hero. Who do you think's going to win unsung hero?
Man, I like that one. There are so many candidates, and I've gone back and forth on all sorts of guys, and I joked that Casey DeSmith made a last-ditch effort, although I don't know when voting closed. And, it's fan voting, too, and so it's a popularity contest. Like, I won't be surprised if Dakota Joshua or Connor Garland win it, and we've spoken about those guys at length. In a hockey market like this one, I always find the unsung hero a little tough to discern just because every story's been told 1,000 times. But, Casey DeSmith, certainly in the first half of the season, Ian Cole early in the season was a nice contributor to this hockey club. Lots of candidates, so there is some intrigue for me in that one. Most exciting player as well. I think you could make an argument for a handful of guys there. So awards night is always fun. The home finale, 50 wins is on the line, and who saw that coming? If they can get one more victory here over the course of these final 2 games, and then, I need to see what's at stake ultimately for the Winnipeg game on Thursday. It's the same night that the Oilers are in Colorado. Like, is this thing really going to go down to the wire? Hopefully not. The Canucks can just take care of business against Calgary and get it done there. So those are the 2 games. It's kind of funny the way the schedule works, that the Canucks haven't been to Winnipeg, and in game 82, like, that is their one and only trip in the regular season, at least, to Winnipeg to take on the Jets. So we'll see who goes, who stays behind, if they're able to rest anybody, how do they approach all of that. But it'll be all hands on deck, including the return of Thatcher Demko, we think, on Tuesday night against the Calgary Flames.
Believe it or not, award voting for the Canucks ended last Monday.
Oh. Come on.
Just take away 2 weeks. I think it was like a 5 or 6 day window that you had to vote. It ended last Monday. Great stuff, Jeff. Thank you for this. We'll catch up later in the week.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.